Axel's starship. The celestial wayfarer trembled with a final, desperate quiver as it careened down through the aquamarine clouds of Jora Va, an oceanic planet rumored to be dotted with phosphorescent reefs and life forms both strange and beautiful. His heart pounded like a staccato war drum, his breath caught between anticipation and dread. He had spent countless days drifting through the cosmic emptiness, battered by ion storms, star flares, and the weight of his own solitude. Now, in an abrupt twist, fate had chosen for him to crash. The ship's altimeter screeched in protest, each alert howling as if to herald certain doom. When he finally plunged through the planet's heavy atmosphere, Axel felt his bones rattle. Static enveloped his ears. The wayfarer's console spat sparks. The lights flickered, and the world outside turned into a swirling haze of teal. Below him, he glimpsed a restless sea, swirling with turquoise brilliance, glimmering with currents of strange luminescence. A final jolt seized the starship's hull, then darkness. When he awoke, he was lying halfway across a corridor, strewn with bits of shattered metal. The interior lights hung from the overhead panels, casting half-broken, sputtering beams over him. Dazed, Axel pushed himself upright. Blood trickled from a shallow cut across his cheek. Wincing, he steadied himself on the console. Outside the cockpit windows, the horizon stretched into an endless plain of softly glowing waters, beneath which he could discern the faint flickers of life. He had managed, by some miracle, to crash upon a half-submerged reef formation, an outcropping of living corals that shimmered with gentle pulses of luminous pink and green. The hull moaned in quiet protest, letting him know the wayfarer was not wholly lost. Axel's instincts kicked in. He ran a quick system check on the primary console. The autopilot flickered with nonsensical readouts. Every engine subsystem was compromised, drained of power, and the hull integrity teetered on the brink. Repairing it alone would be a monumental task. But first, he had to confirm he was safe, or at least safe enough. In this exotic new environment, he pried open the cargo hold's sealed door, using a hydro spanner to force its jammed mechanisms. Then he retrieved a portable oxygen cylinder and a water protective suit designed for shallow aquatic excursions. Jora Va was rumored to have a breathable atmosphere near its surface, though saturated with moist saline. Cautious, he slipped into the suit, clasped the helmet, and tested the seals. He checked the oxygen flow, confirmed it was steady, then pressed the hatch release. The smell of briny air rushed in, crisp and tinged with an otherworldly perfume. A soft breeze, gentle and faint, carried hints of algae and coral pollen. The sky above was a pale turquoise that seemed to open into endless possibility, while the sea around him lapped quietly at the partially submerged hull. The reef formation beneath the starship glowed with subtle pulses, as though it had a heartbeat of its own. Axel took a careful step onto the nearest outcropping. The coral was firm, yet alive, swaying faintly with the currents that brushed its surface. Tall spires of branching structures surrounded him, their tips radiating a faint pink luminescence. Small, jelly-like creatures floated in the air, drifting on the ocean breeze, each pulsating with a curious hum, reminiscent of insects but far more delicate, ephemeral as living bubbles. He ventured further. Underneath the starship's battered nose, water lapped at a portion of exposed engine plating. Axel cursed under his breath. He would need to salvage what he could, find a way to seal the hull, and harness enough power to limp into orbit again, or at least send a distress signal. But first, something else caught his eye. He knelt near a twisted piece of metal, one of the starship's thruster covers. Beneath it, nestled in a shallow pool, was a shape that could have been coral, or perhaps an odd growth of living rock. Its coloration flared orange and teal. It twitched. Axel froze, uncertain whether it was an animal, a plant, or something beyond familiar classification. Carefully, he reached out, pushing away broken debris. The shape flexed, revealing an appendage that looked half coral, half arm, with ridges and delicate fronds reminiscent of seaweed. The being's surface glittered in the watery sunlight, capturing the glow of the surrounding reefs. It was alive. More than that, it seemed injured, for a feeble whimper, like a sound that resonated not in his ears, but in his mind arose. Axel's heart clenched. He gently brushed aside bits of torn metal. The coral, like being, bore a deep wound along its side, where a sharp shard protruded, tinted with greenish fluid that oozed from the crack in its outer shell. Axel did not know if it breathed air, or if it needed submersion, or if it could even endure physical contact from a human. Yet, a wave of empathy washed over him. He rummaged in his suit's toolkit for a sterile bandage, though he knew it was not designed for an alien physiology. Nevertheless, he felt compelled to help. Even if the being was simply an injured local creature, he had to do something, carefully. He reached out and began to remove the sharp fragment. The being quivered, releasing a faint glow across its body. Then lay still. A voice, or something akin to a telepathic whisper, grazed Axel's consciousness. It came not in any recognizable language, but rather as a swirl of impressions, gratitude, relief, and an urgency overshadowed by fear. He was stunned. Was this creature speaking directly to his mind? Over years of interplanetary travel, Axel had heard rumors of telepathic species, but seldom had he encountered them. "Easy," he whispered, as though speaking gently to an injured fawn. "I won't hurt you, I promise." His words might have been useless, for the being did not have visible ears or mouth. Yet the psychic impression returned, trust, tenuous, but trust. Axel removed the shard, used the bandage to stanch the flow of greenish fluid, and cradled the creature in his arms. Its coral-like form was light, surprisingly fragile. Its limbs twitched with shallow pulses of color. Then, a soft hum emerged, a melody so subtle that it might have been imagined. Axel rose to his feet, mindful of the precarious reef beneath him. He had to bring the being somewhere safe, perhaps inside the battered Wayfarer, or into a shallow pool free of debris. The starship's interior might be too hot, or too foreign. Yet it was the only place he had for a proper shelter, if there was a chance it breathed water. The cargo bay's environmental controls could be adapted to create a small aquatic chamber. He hurried back inside. The hatch panel dented and jammed, forcing him to squeeze through. The interior reeked of burnt wiring and melted insulation. He wove past scattered boxes, broken crates, and spools of cable, all while taking care not to jostle the delicate creature in his arms. In the corner of the hold, a large, cylindrical tank used for storing samples of oceanic water from other planets stood intact. It had a manual override for oxygenation settings. Axel carefully opened its lid, filled it with nutrient fluid from his field rations, though it was far from ideal, and lowered the being inside. At first, it floated uncertainly, limbs trailing threads of color. Then, it settled on a small ledge within the tank, its entire body flickering with a warm glow. For a moment, Axel watched, mesmerized. The being's color shifted in pulses, as though it was breathing in the water. He felt a stirring in his mind images of swirling galaxies, of starlight dancing on reflective waves, fleeting glimpses of a coral city. These impressions were faint, intangible, but real enough to make his heart thrum with wonder. He crouched down next to the tank, uncertain how to proceed. He began, though he had no idea if words were useful. "I will help you heal, if I can." In response, he sensed a subtle wave of reassurance, though underpinned by pain. Realizing the being was still injured, Axel scrambled to his medical kit and rummaged for any salve or antibiotic that might not be toxic to an alien life form. He then paused, realizing he possessed only meager knowledge of xenobiology. Even so, he had to try. With gentle diligence, he applied a medicinal ointment to the wound, sealing it as best as he could. The being pulsed again, a calmer note this time, as though singing a song of gratitude within his mind. Axel exhaled in relief, though uncertainty gnawed at him. If the environment inside the ship was truly hostile to this reef dweller, He might be doing more harm than good. Could he risk placing it back in the sea, in open water? He might lose track of it entirely, or it might die from the unfamiliar disturbance caused by the crash. Faced with no better option, Axel decided to keep watch. He jerry-rigged a portable heater and set it to a warm, gentle temperature, hoping to mimic Jora Va's climate. The starship's main reactor was offline, but the emergency power cell still functioned. If only just barely, it would last a few days. Enough time to see if the being recovered. He found a relatively intact corner of the hold to set up a makeshift camp. There, behind some cargo crates, he laid out a bedroll, a small lighting array, and a personal trunk. He needed rest. The crash and frantic rescue had taxed his body, and the day's tension weighed on his mind. As he drifted off, lulled by the sea breeze seeping through broken vents, he thought he heard faint lullabies, whispered into the hush of his dreams. Axel woke to find the being watching him, if watching was the correct term. It pressed itself gently against the tank's curved glass, spines and coral-like fronds gently billowing in the water. He checked its wound, pleased to see the greenish fluid no longer leaked. The bandage remained intact, though slightly discolored. As he tested a few ship systems, the being's presence pressed against his mind again. A series of soft impressions. It felt like curiosity, an urge to share. Axel paused in his repairs, turning to the tank. "You can understand me," he said, trying to keep his voice soft. "Can't you?" He sensed a stirring, a faint swirl of color in the being's aura. Then an image manifested in his mind, a shape, reminiscent of a coral reef city rising from the depths. It was more than an image. It was a memory. He could see spires of pink and teal coral illuminated by swirling schools of luminescent fish, creatures that swam in patterns that formed living tapestries of light. This underwater metropolis glimmered, bound together by a synergy of biology and silent music. "I don't know what you're trying to tell me," Axel admitted, "but I think I understand that you come from somewhere down there." He gestured toward the watery horizon. Again, the telepathic whispers. This time, they coalesced into a single clear concept. Help. Axel nodded. "I'll help you get home. But first, I need to fix my ship, or at least get it stable. If I can't get it airborne, maybe I can build a small submersible." He spent hours rummaging through the interior compartments, assessing the damage. The hull was riddled with gashes. The main thrusters were nearly destroyed. The communications array was unsalvageable in its current form, meaning no immediate SOS. The starship had become a near derelict. Repairs might take weeks, if not months. He needed resources beyond the meager supplies on board. Jora Va's reefs might offer biological materials that could be harnessed for adhesives, or even energy conduction. Axel's mind whirled with possibilities. From behind him, he sensed a faint wave of encouragement. The being in the tank emitted a pulse of shimmering light that seemed to match the tempo of his heartbeat. Axel felt a surge of optimism. At least he was not alone, careful with each step. Axel ventured beyond the reef that cradled the crash site. He modified his suit for partial submersion, relying on built-in flotation and oxygen reserve. Wading into the shallows, he saw with fresh awe how the coral structures rose and fell with the planet's tides, forming labyrinthine pathways that shifted hue under the sun's teal glow. Strange fish darted among the coral pillars, their scales shimmering with an inner light. The entire place was alive with subtle music, not audible in the typical sense, but more akin to telepathic vibrations that hummed softly in the back of his skull. He carried a sampling kit vials, a small cutting tool, a portable analyzer. If the corals contained some crystalline or bioluminescent property that he could harness, it might serve as a stopgap for patching the ship's hull. Or, if he was fortunate, it could even be adapted into a power source. He wondered whether the being he had rescued might offer guidance, but for now, he sensed it was still recovering. It was then that he noticed, out on the horizon, flickers of silver. At first, he thought them to be waves catching the sunlight. Then, as he squinted, The silver shapes dove in and out of the sea, arching smoothly. They were large, majestic creatures, with fins like sails and elongated bodies that shimmered whenever they broke the surface. They reminded him of cosmic whales, but more lithe, more fluid, propelled by some gentle surging power. Feeling a strange comfort in their distant presence, Axel continued to gather bits of coral. Each sample glowed faintly, as though storing energy from the sun, or perhaps from the planet's core. The analyzer in his hand sputtered with incomplete readings, for it was designed for less exotic materials. Still, the data it did gather looked promising. He returned to the Wayfarer, arms laden with samples. His battered starship loomed on the reef, half sunken, a metal husk stranded in living beauty. Within the cargo hold, the coral being stirred at his arrival, pressed a frond to the tank's glass and emitted a curious, musical trill in his mind. "I think I found something," Axel said, though he was unsure if the being comprehended words. These corals might serve as an adhesive patch, possibly even a conduction matrix. "Let's see if it works." He set to work with single-minded determination. He pulped the corals in a mixing tray, added certain chemicals from his med kit, and tested the resulting substance on a piece of scrap metal. The mixture hardened into a flexible, glowing resin that seemed to bond the metal layers with surprising strength. A grin spread across Axel's face. "Unbelievable," he muttered. "This just might work." He donned a harness and lowered himself to the outer hull, carefully plastering the resin over the gashes. As each patch dried, it fused seamlessly, shimmering with quiet luminescence. If it held tight against the water's pressure, it might buy him time to rebuild the thrusters. Even as he worked, he felt the presence of the coral being in the back of his mind, not invasive, but watching, occasionally sending small ripples of encouragement. Axel wondered if he was forging a bond with it, or if it was simply curious, perhaps both. Days passed in a blur of labor. Axel scavenged the ocean floor for more coral or algae with conductive properties. Sometimes, while wading through shallow reefs, he glimpsed the silhouettes of other coral-like beings darting below, but they kept their distance. Strange fish, swirling like living ribbons of light, would brush past him in affectionate greeting, only to vanish when spooked by sudden movements. The sky overhead changed from turquoise to a dusky gold each evening, reflecting upon the water's surface in a mesmerizing tapestry. Meanwhile, the wounded being's condition improved steadily. Its wound closed, leaving only a faint scar across its side. Each day, its color brightened, shifting from muted teal to vibrant purples and golds. At night, it would occasionally hum a gentle lullaby in Axel's mind. Sometimes, if he let his own mind wander, it felt as though they exchanged half-formed thoughts. On one such night, as he dozed beside the tank, he felt a sudden surge of clarity. A mental voice, soft, resonant, and undeniably feminine, whispered, "My name is Nahil." Axel jolted upright. He stared at the being, eyes wide. You can speak," he managed. Nahil pressed her fronds to the tank's glass. In his mind, the words came forth more coherently now, though carried on the same telepathic currents. "I have always spoken," she said, "but I lacked the strength to truly reach your mind. Now, as I heal, I can form images, words." Axel swallowed. "Your name is Nahil. I'm Axel." The being shimmered with color. "Axel, I owe you a debt. You saved my life when I was left to the fate of the reefs." Hesitating, Axel stood. He peeled off the water-damp gloves he had worn earlier. "I only did what anyone would," he said, though he remembered how many starfarers he had met who might not have shown the same kindness. "You were injured in my crash. I feel responsible." Nahil's voice wavered with sadness. "I was weak. My people, they call us star singers. We dwell in the hidden coral cities, but I was on the surface, searching for answers." "Answers to what?" Axel asked gently. "Answers to the question of our origin," Nahil responded. "For countless cycles, we have lived in symbiosis with Jora Va's reefs, harnessing their energies, learning their songs, And yet, we are not from this planet. Or so the old stories say. They claim we are children of the cosmos, exiled or hidden here. I wanted to learn the truth. A hush fell over the cargo hold. Axel's thoughts whirled. So, your people came from beyond this world. Nahil pulsed a glow of confirmation. It is whispered that we are of royal lineages that once soared among the stars, carrying melodies that shaped worlds. We are known as the Star Singers, but our heritage, it's shrouded in half-remembered tales. I was chosen to delve into these mysteries. For my lineage is strong. Axel studied her. Your lineage, in the hush of telepathy. He sensed a regal pride emanating from her. It was gentle, tinged with humility, but definitely there. I am Nahil, the youngest royal of the Jora Va diaspora, heir to an ancient bond that unites coral and starlight. We have lived quietly, hidden in the depths, for eons, but now, there is a threat stirring. Axel's mind reeled at the enormity of the revelation. He had rescued an alien royal, one with a mysterious heritage that spanned galaxies. What kind of threat? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I do not know, Nahil admitted, her color waning with worry. Only that there are rumors of a force seeking us out, searching for what we carry in our songs, the power to shape energy, to call upon the cosmos. I fear that this threat has already stepped upon our shores, sowing discord, harming our reefs. I sensed something approaching, and it drove me to investigate. That is when I wandered too far from home, too close to the surface. Then, you crashed. Axel recalled the glimpses he had seen, debris fields in orbit, possibly from scattered satellites, or from other ships that had visited Jora Va before his own unfortunate arrival. Could it be pirates? Some empire? Nahil's telepathic sigh caressed his mind. I wish I knew. I only know that we must warn my people, my mother, the Grand Celestine of our city. Now that I have recovered, I must return. But the reef is vast. The journey is not without peril, especially with the threat of these unknown forces. Will you help me? The question struck Axel at his core. He thought of the broken wayfarer, the uncertain future. He was stranded, whether he liked it or not. If there was a chance these star singers or their choral technology could aid in the repair of his vessel, forging an alliance might be his best shot at returning to the stars. More importantly, he felt a genuine compassion for Nahil. She was earnest, luminous, a tapestry of living coral and regal grace. Something about her presence kindled a spark in him, a longing to do more than just survive. Yes, he said softly, I'll help you. We'll warn your people. We'll find a way. Nahil's entire body glowed in a gentle crescendo of color. Thank you, Axel. Your kindness will not be forgotten. Axel spent the next day modifying a small submersible craft from what salvageable parts remained of the Wayfarer's survey probes. It was a makeshift vessel, at best, barely large enough for a single pilot, though he hoped it would suffice for shallow excursions. Meanwhile, Nahil ventured onto the deck of the starship for brief periods. Basking in Jora Va's sunlight, she moved with cautious grace, her limbs flowing like drifting tendrils of seaweed. When out of water, her coral ridges hardened, shimmering in the fresh air. To Axel's relief, she could survive on land for limited durations, so long as she periodically immersed herself to hydrate. She explained that star singers had adapted over millennia to be amphibious, though they thrived best in aquatic realms. Day by day, the submersible took shape. Nahil observed Axel's progress with keen interest, offering occasional suggestions via telepathic images. For example, she showed him how to incorporate living coral branches into the hull's outer plating, allowing the vessel to camouflage amid the reef. Axel marveled at her intuitive grasp of biological engineering, a synergy of life and technology foreign to his more mechanical, starship-oriented mind. Before setting out, Nahil spoke of her city. We call it Shantares, the luminous crown. It lies beyond the Great Reef Ridge, hidden beneath the swirling kelp forests. Once, we lived openly, but in recent centuries, we withdrew to the depths, Fearing the troubles of the stars, Axel nodded, flexing the submersible's controls. The small craft hummed with faint resonance, powered by an improvised coral battery that glowed softly. Let's hope this craft holds. I've never piloted something so alive. Nahil gave him an encouraging pulse of telepathic laughter. You will do well. Early the next morning, Axel sealed himself within the submersible's cockpit. The overhead hatch clamped shut with a hiss, leaving him in a dimly lit interior. Through the forward viewport, he could see Nahil slip into the water. There, her bioluminescence sparkled, guiding him gently as she drifted into the depths. The submersible's engines purred to life, stirring water currents around the hull. He descended along the reef slope, careful not to scrape the vessel on jagged outcroppings. The water teemed with curious fish, some shaped like glowing ribbons, others like tiny spinning orbs. Schools parted around Nahil's glowing form, weaving respectful arcs. From his vantage, Axel could see the coral itself shimmer in response to her presence, pulses of color radiating outward in melodic waves. He was awestruck by the biodiversity. Great columns of coral rose on every side, forming archways beneath which graceful eels slithered. Towering anemones swayed gently, trailing streaming filaments that glowed at the tips. Everywhere, there was life, an undersea kingdom that seemed part dream, part reality. Nahil glided on ahead, pausing occasionally to wait for him. The submersible's instruments indicated a depth of around 300 meters. Despite the planetary conditions, visibility remained surprisingly clear, thanks to the coral's luminescence. Schools of fish illuminated corridors in the reef like living lanterns. Deeper still, Axel glimpsed large, manta-like creatures that soared in slow arcs, their wings almost transparent. After an hour's careful navigation, Nahil led him to the great reef ridge. It rose from the seabed in a sweeping curve, branching into labyrinthine layers. It was too vast to see in its entirety. Axel's readout spiked, confirming massive energy signatures emanating from the coral structures. Then, beyond the ridge, the seafloor dropped abruptly into a yawning trench. Within that trench, countless glowing towers emerged, forming what could only be described as a city. Spires of coral, intricately carved, rose into a forest of luminous architecture. Pathways of living coral, suspended like bridges, connected these structures at various levels. A gentle swirl of planktonic lights drifted among them, shimmering in colors of pink, blue, and gold. In the center, a particularly grand tower ascended, crowned by a swirling dome that radiated pulses of energy, as though singing in unison with the entire settlement. Axel stared in wonder. This was Chanteri's, the luminous crown, hidden in the planet's watery depths. Nahil swam around the submersible, beckoning him forward, and he carefully maneuvered his craft into the city's outskirts. A cluster of star singers emerged from behind coral pillars, their bodies reminiscent of Nahil's, but each uniquely varied in coloration and form. Some had branching fronds, like tall antlers. Others had delicate, fan-shaped limbs that glowed softly. Their eyes, if they could be called eyes, regarded the submersible with a mix of caution and curiosity. Nahil drifted forward, her aura bright, sending pulses of reassurance. Moments later, an entire wave of color rippled through the assembled star singers. As though they recognized her presence, they parted respectfully, allowing her to lead Axel deeper into the city. He soon found a small docking platform near one of the coral towers, where the water was shallow enough for the submersible to rest. Nahil motioned for him to exit. Taking a deep breath, Axel sealed his suit, ensuring it was ready for underwater operation, and climbed out. Warm water enveloped him, and the hush of the undersea world filled his ears. Nahil approached, and with gentle telepathy, she guided him to a platform that rose from the city floor. As she did, Axel noticed air pockets along the coral corridors, forming small chambers where amphibious visitors could breathe. The star singers must have engineered these structures for themselves, reflecting their dual nature. A group of star singers waited, forming a semicircle around a regal figure whose coral ridges flared in an elegant crest. Her coloration was a deep violet with swirls of silver. She held herself with a presence that made Axel's heart skip. This had to be Nahil's mother, the Grand Celestine. Nahil bowed, a graceful lowering of her coral fronds. Axel, uncertain of protocol, dipped his head in respect. A wave of telepathic hush filled the area, like a silent intake of breath. Then, the regal figure spoke, her mind voice resonant with authority and age. "My daughter, you have returned." The words were calm but tinged with relief. Her eyes, large and gleaming, rested upon Nahil with tenderness. "We feared the worst when you went missing, venturing so far." Nahil's color shimmered. "I was injured, but saved by this off-worlder. Axel, he has shown me kindness, and I trust him." The Grand Celestine turned her gaze upon Axel, studying him. He felt an odd sensation, as though she could peer into his soul. "We are in your debt, traveler," she conveyed. "You rescued my daughter at a time when she was most vulnerable. You have our gratitude." Axel bowed again. "My ship crashed upon the reef. I had no idea this planet was home to such a wondrous civilization. I only did what I felt was right." A ripple of appreciation moved through the assembled star singers. Then, gravity tinged the Grand Celestine's tone. "We face a perilous hour. Strange vessels have appeared in our orbit. Pieces of star metal have fallen into the seas. There is an ill presence, one that hungers for our gifts. Our city stands at risk." Nahil's aura dimmed. "I felt it. Mother. These unknown forces, they search for our ability choosing energy, to weave starlight through coral, but for what purpose?" No one answered for a moment. The Grand Celestine's gaze swept over the city's spires, where a subtle flicker of worry ran through the glowing architecture. "We do not yet know. Only that they have been sending scouting probes into our waters. Some have attacked outlying reefs, extracting pieces of our coral as though seeking to harness our powers." Axel's anger stirred. "We must protect your people, your reefs," he said, not hiding the passion in his voice. "If they want your technology or your gifts, they may not stop until they seize them by force." The Grand Celestine turned to him. "You are of the stars, as are we. Though our memory of that life has dimmed, perhaps you can help us. Will you stand with us?" Without hesitation, Axel nodded. "Yes, I will." Thus began Axel's days in Chanteries, working side by side with the star singers. He used his mechanical know-how to reinforce the city's outer barriers, installing improvised sensors adapted from the Wayfarer's remaining devices. Nahil introduced him to master coral weavers, who shaped living coral into defensive structures that pulsed with energy. The synergy of technology and biology was mesmerizing. Nahil, for her part, was not merely a princess in name. She was a gifted singer. Her voice, woven through telepathic harmonies, could energize entire coral clusters. She taught Axel how her people drew upon their ancient powers. They would focus their will, weaving mental melodies that resonated with the coral, causing it to vibrate and glow in complex patterns. The coral thought, in turn, responded, amplifying these energies until they could be shaped into physical effects: illumination, propulsion, even rudimentary shielding. Star singers once journeyed among the galaxy's crossroads, Nahil explained in a quiet moment. "We shaped the bones of planets, nurtured life in barren places, and built alliances that spanned constellations. Then, long ago, we retreated. We parted ways with the greater cosmos, seeking shelter here on Jora Va." Axel listened, spellbound. "Why?" Nahil's gaze drifted to the swirling waters around them. "We were betrayed by those who sought to twist our gifts for destruction. A great war erupted, and many of our kin perished. The survivors fled, scattering across unknown worlds. My ancestors found Jora Va, where the reefs resonated well with our powers. Over time, we built Chanteries and tried to forget the violence. But it seems the cosmos has found us again." Tension hung like a heavy weight. Axel realized how vulnerable they were. Advanced star-faring empires with ill intent could descend on Jora Va, enslaving the star singers or extracting their secrets. A pang of guilt tugged at him. His own presence here was accidental, but it reminded him how easily technology from beyond might intrude upon their sanctuary. Yet, he was here now, bound to them by circumstance and empathy. He pledged himself to their cause, determined to protect them from harm. Sure enough, trouble came. Alarms reverberated through the coral spires one evening, their luminous waves flickering urgently outside the city's perimeter. Unknown mechanical devices drifted through the water, scanning, probing. The city's newly installed sensors confirmed they were unmanned drones, likely from an orbiting vessel. Axel, clad in a reinforced diving suit, joined Nahil and a contingent of star singers as they ventured beyond Chanteries to confront the intruders. The drones glided in ominous silence, each shaped like a metallic manta ray, with scanning beams emanating from their wings. The moment the group approached, the machines ignited pulses of red light, preparing for combat. "Stay behind me," Nahil warned Axel through their telepathic link. She raised her arms, coral ridges flaring, and sang a haunting, layered chord that reverberated through the water. The reef around them pulsed in response. A shimmering barrier coalesced, deflecting the initial laser volley from the drones. Axel swam beside her, brandishing a makeshift energy harpoon he had fashioned from the submersible's laser welder. He aimed at one of the drones and fired, striking its wing. Sparks erupted in the water. A second drone whirled around, unleashing a directed beam. Axel dove aside, adrenaline pounding. Meanwhile, the other star singers joined their voices with Nahil's. Their combined chorus surged, channeling energy into the reef. Coral structures lit up, emanating arcs of bioluminescent current that snaked through the water. The drones convulsed as they were struck by the wave of living energy, short-circuiting in brilliant flashes. One by one, they collapsed, drifting lifelessly to the seabed. The battle was over quickly, but the threat was undeniable. These drones had advanced scanning capabilities, presumably mapping the reef's energy signatures. It was only a matter of time before their controllers deciphered enough to attempt something more direct. Upon returning to Chanteries, the Grand Celestine convened a council. Axel stood among the star singers, feeling the weight of their collective concern. Nahil recounted the battle, emphasizing how the drones had been scanning with a focus on the city's central tower, the seat of their greatest energies. "We must be prepared for an invasion," she declared telepathically, her aura solemn. "They know of our existence now. We can't remain hidden." An elder with spines of deep blue responded, "We have never attempted open conflict in living memory. Our ways are of healing, of harmony." Axel spoke up, carefully bridging words and mental impressions. "I can help organize your defenses, but you must be ready to fight if necessary. There's no telling how many are up there. If they have a capital ship in orbit, we're at a severe disadvantage." The Grand Celestine regarded them all with regal calm. "Indeed, we must act swiftly. But I sense we are not without allies. The reefs themselves are alive. They shall answer our call if we join in unity." In the days that followed, Chanteries prepared. Coral artisans enhanced the city's natural architecture, embedding it with resonant nodes, powered by the songs of the star singers. Axel helped orchestrate an early warning system, tying the city's telepathic network to mechanical sensors. Nahil spent hours each day training with other singers, honing her ability to channel the reef's energy into protective barriers. Axel also raced to repair what he could of his starship's engines. With the coral resin patches holding up, he managed to restore partial function to the thrusters. However, the ship was still grounded, lacking the advanced engine modules that had been destroyed in the crash. Worse, the communications array was beyond conventional repair. He would need a specialized part or a high-powered transmitter to send an SOS or to contact potential allies beyond the planet's atmosphere. During these frantic efforts, Axel and Nahil found quiet moments to reflect upon what was unfolding. They often spoke on a small ledge overlooking the city's coral spires, where watery sunlight cascaded in shimmering patterns. I never expected to find such a civilization, Axel admitted, let alone become entangled in what might be a cosmic conflict. Nahil inclined her head, her coral fronds gently waving. Nor did I expect to meet a traveler from the stars. I have heard tales of ancient voyages, but to witness a living starfarer is something of a dream. A thoughtful silence passed. Overhead, schools of fish glided in luminous arcs, their glow reflecting in Nahil's eyes. Axel felt a warmth in his chest, a resonance that transcended simple camaraderie. He reached out, resting a gloved hand gently atop one of her smaller coral fronds. She did not pull away. "Your people have welcomed me," he said, "and I've grown to care about them. About you." Nahil's aura glowed softly, her telepathic voice both tender and shy. "I feel the same. Our bond is new, yet strong. You have a courageous spirit, Axel, and a kind heart." A hush settled between them, filled with the unspoken possibilities of what might come. Then, a wave of urgent color rippled across the city's coral towers, the alarm. They exchanged glances, hearts pounding, and rushed to join the defense. This time, the attack was larger, more coordinated. A fleet of drones descended through the water, accompanied by sleek submersibles, emblazoned with alien markings. These submersibles, shaped like predatory fish, bore high-powered energy cannons that glowed with a menacing red light. They quickly surrounded the outer perimeter of Chanteries. Axel, in his own small submersible, took position alongside Starsinger warriors. Nahil, with a circle of her kin, engaged the coral's energies, forming a protective dome around the city. Vibrant arcs of color crisscrossed overhead, shimmering in the watery gloom. The alien submersibles fired beams that crackled upon impact, sending thunderous shockwaves that rattled the coral structures. "Hold the barrier," Nahil urged, her telepathic voice strained. She and her fellow singers poured their voices into the reef's resonant channels, weaving a tapestry of sound and light. The dome flared, deflecting the brunt of the assault, but cracks began to appear in the field. Axel launched a barrage of improvised torpedoes, each one rigged with a small charge of coral-infused energy. They exploded in bursts of aqua-colored brilliance, damaging some of the enemy's submersibles. However, more replaced them from the darkness, an unrelenting tide. Inside his cockpit, warning lights flared. "We can't hold out forever," he muttered. "We need reinforcements, or we need to take the fight to them." A telepathic voice cut through the din. Nahil's mother, the Grand Celestine. "The time has come. Singers, channel the deep reefs. Release the celestial chorus." Nahil's eyes widened with awe and fear. "Mother, that is forbidden. We have not invoked it in centuries," the Grand Celestine replied firmly. "Better to risk our ancient powers than to lose our city." "Do it, child." Nahil drew a trembling breath. She and the others dove deeper, approaching the base of the central tower. Axel followed in his submersible, uncertain but determined to help. The tower's foundation glowed with swirling patterns. Nahil placed her hands upon them, and the city's other elders did the same. Together, they closed their eyes, their collective voices rising in a resonant chorus that Axel could feel echoing through his very bones. The water itself seemed to reverberate, thrumming with an ancient melody that transcended language. The coral glowed with intensifying pulses, the city lighting up from its core to its spire. A tide of energy expanded outward, a wave of luminous force that radiated through the ocean. As the wave reached the attacking submersibles, they faltered. Their systems sparked and malfunctioned, forced offline by an overwhelming resonance. The pilots struggled, but their craft were caught in the blast, drifting helplessly. Even the drones spun and crashed, their circuitry fried. For a breathtaking moment, it seemed victory was at hand. But then, above the city, the water churned. A massive shape descended an enemy cruiser, far larger and more heavily armed than the submersibles. The wave of energy dissipated against its formidable shields. Through the gloom, Axel could see cannons bristling along its hull. A new assault began, more devastating than before. The cruiser unleashed a concentrated beam that shattered part of the coral dome, sending shards of living reef tumbling. Starsingers scattered, struggling to maintain their unity. Nahil doubled over, crying out in pain as the feedback lanced through her telepathic link to the coral. Axel grit his teeth, pushing the submersible's thrusters to their limit. He soared toward the cruiser, weaving between debris and swirling water currents. "Come on," he growled. "Just a little further." He had rigged one final torpedo, enhanced with the city's coral resonance. It was a desperate gamble. But if he could strike the cruiser's main reactor, maybe he could disable it. The submersible's targeting scope flickered. Axel steadied his aim, ignoring the pounding of his heart. But the cruiser was not idle. It focused its beam on Axel's small craft. Heat warnings blared, hull integrity dropping. His cockpit shook violently. Smoke began to fill the cabin. Still, he held the submersible on course, sweat beading his brow. In that desperate moment, a surge of telepathic energy enveloped him, a harmony of countless voices. Nahil's presence shone brightest among them, lending him clarity and purpose. The cruiser's beam skewed slightly, giving Axel the opening he needed. He locked on. "Now!" he roared, firing the enhanced torpedo. A streak of shimmering coral light cut through the water, piercing the cruiser's shields. The resulting explosion lit the sea in a blazing conflagration. Pieces of the cruiser's hull tore away, leaving it crippled and listing. The beam weapon sputtered, then fell silent. Cheers resonated through the city, telepathic exultation shared by all star singers. Axel exhaled, relief flooding him. The water around them drifted with wreckage. The cruiser, though damaged, attempted to ascend. Without functional thrusters, it hung in the water like a wounded beast. Nahil and her mother led a group of singers to encase it in coral growth, channeling their powers until living polyps adhered to the cruiser's hull, sealing it in place. One by one, the submersibles that had accompanied it were captured or destroyed. The threat was neutralized. For now, in the aftermath, Shantaries rejoiced. They had faced down an invasion, summoning powers unused for centuries, guided by new alliances. The Grand Celestine declared a city-wide celebration. Soft, musical pulses of color radiated across every tower and spire, filling the waters with shimmering confetti of bioluminescent plankton. In one of the shallower grottos, Axel and Nahil stood together. She had emerged partially onto a rocky ledge, letting her coral fronds soak in the planet's air. Axel removed his diving helmet, gulping the moist, briny atmosphere. There was a shared sense of triumph between them, but also a question of what lay ahead. "I suspect those who sent that cruiser won't simply give up," Axel said quietly. "But they'll think twice before attacking again, at least while the city stands united." Nahil nodded, her telepathic voice warm with admiration. "We owe you a great debt, Axel. Without your courage, we would have been overwhelmed." He chuckled softly, brushing a hand through his damp hair. "And without yours, I couldn't have fired that last torpedo in time." They lapsed into companionable silence. Then, from behind, the Grand Celestine approached, accompanied by a handful of elders. She regarded Axel with regal gratitude. "We have spoken. We have witnessed your bravery, your kindness. We see that you and Nahil share a special bond. Thus, we extend to you an invitation. Remain here as a friend of our people, or if you wish to return to the stars, we will aid in repairing your vessel." Axel felt an unexpected pang. He looked out at the coral city, remembering how it felt to fight for something bigger than himself, remembering the sense of belonging that had blossomed within him. He also thought of the life he had lived floating from star to star, never staying in one place, never forming deep attachments. He began, voice trembling with emotion. "I don't want to lose what I've found here. But I can't ignore that the galaxy might need to know of these threats. If we warn others, maybe we can keep the Star Singers safe. There's so much out there that might come for you." Nahil placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "We understand, and perhaps it is time our people ventured forth again, not in hiding, but forging alliances, as we once did in ages past." A chorus of agreement rippled among the Star Singers. The Grand Celestine's gaze shone with tears that sparkled like pearls. "So be it. Let us unite. that we may bridge the vastness between galaxies with understanding, compassion, and strength. In the following weeks, an extraordinary collaboration took shape. Chanteries mobilized its best coral artisans to rebuild Axel's starship in ways beyond anything he had imagined. They merged living coral technology with the metal hull, creating a bioship that resonated with Starsinger energies. The hull now pulsed with a faint glow, imbued with protective properties. Coral-based circuits replaced damaged wiring. A living reactor, grown from the reef's heart, provided power drawn from the synergy of starlight and oceanic currents. Working tirelessly alongside the Starsingers, Axel integrated the starship's controls to accommodate telepathic interfacing, allowing Nahil and others to pilot it through mental harmonies. When it was complete, the newly christened celestial chorus shimmered under the water, poised to rise into the sky as a testament to their union. On the final day of preparations, the Grand Celestine presented Axel with a small medallion carved from rare, iridescent coral, etched with the crest of Chanteries. "Wear this as a symbol of our alliance," she said, "and of our gratitude." Axel bowed. "Thank you. I will guard it always." Nahil, standing beside him, glowed with anticipation. "We will journey together," she announced. "I wish to see the stars, to learn more of our heritage. We can reach out to friendly powers, forge alliances, and ensure Jora Va's safety." The Grand Celestine embraced her daughter, though sorrow and pride mixed in her aura. "The city will always be here for you, my child. Remember your home, remember your duty, and sing the star songs with honor." Nahil bowed her head. "I will, Mother, I promise." With the blessings of the entire city, Axel and Nahil boarded the celestial chorus. A hush fell over Chanteries as they powered up the vessel. Bubbles streamed around the coral-laden hull. Axel felt the living ship respond to his controls, gently guided by Nahil's presence. Slowly, they ascended through the water, passing the Great Reef Ridge, rising to the surface where turquoise skies awaited. Breaking above the waves, sunlight dazzled across the newly patched hull. Seabirds with shimmering plumage scattered into the air. Axel took a breath of the open atmosphere, heart pounding with excitement. The main thrusters ignited, fueled by the living reactor's cosmic-laced energy, and the celestial chorus rose steadily, defying gravity. Soon, they soared past the planet's exosphere, gazing down at Jora Va in all its oceanic splendor. Beside him, Nahil's eyes shone with wonder, seeing the stars unobstructed for the first time. A swirl of telepathic awe rippled through the cockpit. She reached out, resting a frond lightly against Axel's hand. "Thank you," she whispered into his mind, the words echoing with quiet emotion. "You have given me the stars," Axel smiled. "We gave them to each other. Now, let's see what's out there." With that, the bioship turned away from Jora Va, setting a course for the nearest hyperspace lane. The starlight beckoned, an infinite tapestry of possibilities. Together, they would seek allies, share knowledge, and guard against the forces that threatened to extinguish the gentle choral songs of Jora Va. A new chapter began for both the lone spacefarer and the youngest royal of the Starsingers, bound by trust, friendship, and something deeper that neither fully named, but both understood, an unbreakable bond that bridged the distance between galaxies. And so, in the hush of vacuum and the gentle glow of distant suns, their story found its joyful ascent, a promise that compassion and unity could blossom even where the ocean's depths met the cosmic gulf, forging hope anew among the stars.